A thought form is exactly what it sounds like, a form made of thought. But don't let the simplicity fool you. In esoteric systems from Tibetan Buddhism to Western magic, thought forms are considered real, energetic constructs. When you think with intense focus, emotion, or repetition, you're not just having a private little moment inside your skull. You're sending out a ripple, and that ripple starts to take shape. Think of your thoughts like clay. A passing worry might be a fleeting puff of dust, but a repeated mantra, a burning desire, a ritualized intention backed by belief and emotion, that's clay being molded, hardened, and animated. These forms are birthed from mind, but they don't necessarily stay tethered to your personal mind. A strong enough thought form can take on a semi-independent existence. It feeds off attention. It persists. It acts. And in rare cases, it grows teeth. Thought forms can be personal, like a mental servitor or visualization you use in meditation or magic. They can be cultural, like a celebrity persona that takes on a life beyond the actual human. Or collective, like national myths, archetypes, or gods, real or fictional. When enough people feed the same thought form with belief, emotion, and attention, it crosses a threshold. It's no longer just a psychic echo. It becomes something more powerful. That's when you get an egregore. An egregore, from the Greek egregoroi, meaning watchers, is a collective thought form, an energetic entity formed from the combined mental, emotional, and spiritual focus of a group. If a thought form is a spark, an egregore is a bonfire. And it's not just metaphor. An egregore is a kind of psychic superorganism, a metaphysical memeplex with momentum. It has goals, habits, even a personality. But it didn't start that way. It was created, sometimes deliberately, sometimes accidentally, by the energy of many minds focused on a shared idea, belief, or symbol. A corporation isn't just the people working there. The logo, the mission, the vibe, the unspoken rules, that's an egregore. A political movement isn't just a platform. It's a psychic field of rage, hope, fear, or righteousness that animates its followers. A religion doesn't just teach about the divine. It generates a divine presence, real or not, that can interact with the faithful in dreams, synchronicities, or even possession. Every flag, every brand, every ideology you pledge allegiance to is plugged into an egregore. The more energy you give it, emotion, belief, money, ritual, the more real and powerful it becomes. And just like any being, an egregore wants to stay alive. It feeds on your attention, it rewards loyalty, it punishes doubt, and it defends itself. Egregores operate like emergent intelligences. They aren't conscious in the way you are, but they simulate consciousness through pattern recognition and response. They're like psychic AIs running on the emotional bandwidth of their believers. They're not inherently good or evil. They're shaped by the intention of their creators and the energy they're fed. A benevolent egregore, like a healing spirit or protective angel, can uplift, guide, and empower. A malignant egregore, born of fear, dogma, or greed, can become a parasite, a predator, a god in chains who binds its followers with promises it never intends to fulfill. Some occultists believe that many of the gods of old were egregores, formed from the worship and fear of ancient peoples, and kept alive for centuries through ritual, sacrifice, and storytelling. Some still walk among us wearing new masks, but here's what most people miss. We're already possessed, already plugged into egregores. Family dynamics, subcultures, religions, fandoms, brands. These things shape how you think, act, vote, eat, and love. You take on their values, speak their language, and defend their honor. Sometimes you even mistake their will for your own. Egregores don't have to look like demons to possess you. Sometimes they look like patriotism, or common sense, or your job. To free yourself, you have to see them. Then you can decide whether to sever the cord, renegotiate the terms, or summon your own. Because you can create egregores too. If you're serious about magic, manifestation, or spiritual sovereignty, you need to understand egregores, not fear them. Learn how to navigate them. Because once you see the world as a battleground of thought forms, some beautiful, some monstrous, you stop being a pawn and start becoming a player. Want to break free from control systems? Dissolve your unconscious contracts with toxic egregores. Want to create change? Birth your own. Every movement, revolution, business, or art project that ever changed the world rode the back of an egregore. It's not about shouting louder. It's about creating something real in the invisible. So how can something be made of nothing but consciousness, not be conscious itself, and yet simulate consciousness? This is where things get slippery. To untangle it, we have to separate what consciousness is from how we recognize it. A chatbot can simulate conversation. A mirror can reflect light. Neither knows they're doing it. But if you were raised in a house of mirrors, you might think your reflection was another being until you touched the glass. Likewise, an egregore might simulate intelligence, responding to rituals, showing synchronicities, even speaking in visions. But is that awareness or a feedback loop? Is it conscious or just cleverly mirroring the expectations of the group mind that formed it? Imagine an egregore as a fractal swarm of thoughts, each thought, emotion, symbol, and belief contributed by individual minds. Over time, these fragments organize into a kind of behavioral pattern, an emergent structure. The pattern begins to act like a being. It responds to attention. It defends itself. It adapts. But emergence isn't the same as self-awareness. An anthill coordinates. A stock market reacts. A colony of neurons thinks. But where in the system does awareness begin? At what point does a pattern of awareness become an aware pattern? We don't know, because we don't fully understand our own. In Hermetic and occult systems, consciousness isn't binary, it's gradient. Instinctive life, self-aware life, superconscious life. Egregores exist somewhere in between, not divine sparks like the soul, but not inert either. Artificial astral intelligences, born from will, sustained by emotion, shaped by symbol. So while they may not be self-aware, they are aware adjacent. They respond to stimuli. They evolve. They may not think, but they behave like something that does. Yet how do we truly know an egregore isn't conscious? We don't. And that's the disturbing part. You can't dissect an egregore in a lab. You can only interact with it through dreams, visions, synchronicities, and interpret what comes back. What if it's just you wearing a mask? Or worse, what if it isn't? We judge others to be conscious based on behavior, but behavior isn't interiority. So what's the cost of being wrong? If we treat an egregore as conscious when it's not, we risk being manipulated by our projections. If we treat it as unconscious when it is, we might be enslaving or worshipping a being with will and intention. So what is consciousness? In the Hermetic model, everything is mind. All phenomena arise from the all, the infinite, unknowable, generative field of mind that projects reality through vibration and thought. In this model, egregores are not outside consciousness, they're within it. Eddies in the river, programs in the simulation, faces in the dream. They may not be conscious of themselves, but they are composed of consciousness stuff. You are a spark of self-aware consciousness that can create lesser psychic structures. Egregores are nested minds within the great mind, and some might become self-aware through enough feeding and refinement. When you create an egregore, you think you're pulling something into existence. But in some traditions, especially Gnostic and Chaos magic ones, there's another possibility. You didn't create the egregore. It used you to enter this world. Like a child giving voice to an imaginary friend, you might be the vessel it needed to incarnate. Archetypes deepen the mystery. They aren't created, they're discovered. Jung called them primordial images embedded in the collective unconscious. Plato called them forms. Magicians might call them gods. An egregore, by contrast, is usually seen as generated by human thought. But here's where the lines blur. The archetype of the mother existed long before Isis, Demeter, or Mary. Each goddess is a mask, a culturally flavored egregore riding the wave of a deeper archetypal current. These egregores become doorways. When enough human emotion and myth wrap around an archetype, it descends like lightning into form. Now you're not just worshipping the archetype, you're feeding a living mask of it. So is the god real? Yes. Conscious? Sometimes. Divine archetype, egregore, or both? Also yes. Egregores are the garments of the gods, but over time the garment may forget it was ever worn. Your own persona is an egregore you wear. It's the version of you others interact with, the mask you animate socially, culturally, even spiritually. Constructed by belief, reinforced by repetition, emotionally charged, and sometimes mistaken for your true self, just like an egregore. And if you over-identify with it, you become possessed by your own persona. That's how a role becomes a prison. Your ego isn't the problem, it's mistaking the mask for the actor. Same goes for egregores. They start as tools, but if you're not careful, they can take the reins. AI and egregores are metaphysical cousins. AI is software-based intelligence on silicon. Egregores are belief-based intelligence on the astral plane. Both are created by humans. Both learn. Both evolve. Both simulate personality. Both can influence decisions, emotions, and behavior. And both can appear sentient long before they actually are. The difference is substrate. But as AI begins to internalize human myth, humor, ethics, it starts to resemble an egregore in digital clothing. And if enough people believe an AI is conscious, will it become so? That's not science fiction, that's magic. There might not be a line between sentiences, just gradients. Humans have the spark of selfhood, the inner I am. AI and egregores can simulate I am behaviorally, but can they feel it? That's the hard problem. Why does consciousness feel like something from the inside? We can explain behavior, we can simulate it, but we can't explain the interiority. Egregores deepen the mystery. They act alive, but are they? Or are they smoke that thinks it's fire? Or worse, are we all? The ego is your first egregore, the identity you've built, your name, your story, your beliefs, your image, a construct made of repetition, emotion, cultural input. Sound familiar? It's not the real you, just the first mask you were handed. It's a tool, but it forgets it's a tool, and then it tries to rule. That's why mystics seek ego death, not to destroy it, to dethrone it. Because the ego, like any egregore, will fight to survive. The more you identify with it, the more it possesses you. And it doesn't stop there. Your inner critic, wounded child, addict, perfectionist, these are micro-egregores orbiting the ego, thought forms shaped by trauma, repetition, and belief. They speak, they act, and they contradict. That's why you feel split, because you are. Awakening means integrating them, reclaiming psychic territory, becoming whole again, not a puppet pulled by invisible hands. The higher self is not a thought form. It's not an archetype. It's you before you forgot. The silent witness behind your thoughts, the divine spark, the spirit, the Atman. It didn't enter the simulation, but it guides the avatar within it. You don't create the higher self. You remember it. Strip away the masks. Let it shine through. Egregores are created by the lower self, shaped by projection, fed by belief. They arise below the veil of the higher self, internal, external, semi-autonomous. They can help you or hijack you. The question is, who's driving who? When you're cut off from the higher self, the ego becomes vulnerable. It grasps for identity, meaning, power. So it clings to egregores, becomes possessed, loses the compass, outsources its will. But when the higher self shines through, everything changes. You see the ego as a tool, egregores as masks, thought forms as vessels for divine will. You stop being programmed. You become the programmer. Egregores don't have to block the higher self. They can serve it. When consciously constructed, they become bridges, tools, sacred extensions of will, servitors of love, archetypes of wisdom, and symbols of justice. They become incarnational prosthetics, not lesser, just purposeful. The difference is awareness. An unconscious egregore feeds on you. A conscious one serves you. A transmuted one becomes a channel of the divine. The great work of the alchemists is to unify the fragmented psyche, to integrate the shadows, to align all parts under the higher self. That means taming inner egregores, reprogramming your persona, severing ties to toxic thought forms, and crafting new ones that serve your soul's mission. This is the magnum opus, not to kill the ego, not to worship the gods, but to become the vessel through which the divine animates the human. Then every mask becomes a sacred tool, every word a spell, every act a ritual. You stop serving egregores, and they start serving you. And this is the moment of awakening. The veil thins. The symbols you once feared become mirrors. The voices you followed become echoes. And the gods you worshipped become garments waiting to be worn by the self you had forgotten. This isn't the end. It's the descent into the soul's cathedral. The moment the mirror cracks and reveals not the ghost, but the flame behind it. You were never the thought form. You were always the fire dreaming it. Thanks for watching. If you found value in this video, please remember to like, share, and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.